Welcome to the Retro Video Store Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Retro Video Store Podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
That's my co-host, Neil.
I'm Neil. And who is, I don't know, in a training in Fresno or some crap like that?
That would be David. This is going to be the part where David leaves us for a while and comes back intermittently. He'll be like a special guest star on the podcast for a little in and out whenever he sees fit. So
Don't say in and out and David in the same sentence, please. Thank you. This is where David leaves us. Sounds like a very touching Hallmark movie.
We say goodbye to David.
This is where David leaves us. Two friends deal with the grief on a podcast.
Yes. So today we are talking about Kill Bill Volume 1. It's actually going to be nice to talk about a movie that doesn't have like a giant monster or monsters in it.
It
does. Got burned out at the end of Monster March.
No, there are giant monsters in this movie. Uma Thurman's toes.
Yes, she has some feet. But of course, Tarantino loves feet.
God, he loves him the feet.
Yes, but we'll get into that. So Kill Bill Volume 1 from 2003. I didn't realize it's already 21 years old. It's kind of crazy.
Just shut your whore mouth.
Yeah, it just makes me feel even older. I'm like, God. But
well, that's what I've been getting in my news feed. It's like, oh, this movie was from 25 years ago. This movie was from this many years ago. Because you'll see, and it'll be like, oh, this film. I forget what it was. And I looked at the title like, oh, fucking love that movie. And you click on it, and it's like, this was 25 years ago. It's like, nope, not visiting your site now. I'm going to swipe right off that.
Yeah.
I don't need the news to make me feel old. What I need is my knees to make me feel old.
I woke up and my hip hurt today. Like I was sleeping on my side and it was like, oh, my hip hurts. And I was hobbling around until I walked around a little bit and loosened it up. And I was like, oh my God, my hip.
I had to get down to fish some stuff out from underneath the table at work. And when I got up, because I've got new ACLs and new MCL in one leg. And when I got up, it's super noisy. And it was just like there was a complete lull. And so everybody just looked over. And a guy I worked with, Kevin, just looked at me. He's like, damn, man, you are old. Like, fuck you. You're over 60.
You don't really realize how old you are until you have to get up fast. Like if for some reason at work, a computer goes down and then I have to go crawl under the console, restart the computer or check connections or whatever. And then you like try to pop up like, hey, I'm, in good shape. And you're like, ugh, and you make noises. I make involuntary old man noises all the time.
Oh, or the satisfied noise when you sit down, like,
oh God, I do that all the time. Get ready to use the bathroom either before you start or before you end. You're like, no, it's bad.
There was a song on the radio. These guys did the morning radio guys. They were doing it was "Hello Darkness, my old friend. I stood up way too fast again," and I'm like, nope. Not me. And then, you do the very same thing. People pay money for drugs when really all you need to do is get older and then just make a quick change in elevation and you'll be fine. The room will spin. It'll be amazing.
Yeah. Hey, before we start talking about the movie, let's do what we always do. Neil, what did you watch this week?
So, as you were saying, you were a little burned out on the monsters. I was a little burned out on the monsters too. So, I had a couple movies that I'd sort of tucked aside that I wanted to watch. And the one with Nicolas Cage, where he keeps appearing in everybody's dreams, is that Studio A24 movie.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it. So I was getting ready to do that, but then it popped up and it was like, oh, you watched Kill Bill. You might like to watch this. And I ended up watching Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, a little Tarantino fest.
I went on a little Tarantino fest. And then I was sitting there thinking, like, there's a couple of his movies I haven't seen. I haven't seen like his World War II movie, and I haven't seen Django Unchained. And I was thinking maybe
I like Django Unchained. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't started it. I got through those two, and then I realized I had started No Country for Old Men, It got maybe 10 minutes in and had to stop for whatever reason. So it showed up in my queue. It's like, you never finished this. So next week I will be talking to you about No Country for Old Men.
That is an amazing movie. The Coen brothers really knocked it out of the park on that one. It's just really, really good.
Well, see, that's what everybody said. Joe watched it and he keeps saying like, Dad, it's really good. You need to watch this. I'm like, I'm super down to watch it. It's just one of those things. I've started it and then things happen. I was going to start it yesterday and then my garbage disposal took a dump and flooded all underneath the sink, which I was replacing right before we did. I was sending you lovely photos of what the underside of my sink looked like. I should have sent you the after photo. So choice.
So there is one quote from Old Country, No Country for Old Men, and it's a non-spoiler quote, but it always makes me laugh. And it's like, was that a true story? So, well, it's certainly true that it was a story. And yeah, that made me made me laugh. Just the way the Southern dialect or the sayings that everybody uses in that movie is pretty good.
And see, my grandparents were Southern. So whenever I hear stuff like that, it just reminds me of my grandparents. But I am in a Javier Bardem kind of mood after Dune 2.
Yeah.
Because he was so freaking good.
Lisan el-Gaib.
He was so good. So good. And
he's really good in Skyfall as well. He was good in that one.
Oh, yeah. As the bad guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was really good in that as well. He's one of those I know who he is, but I have a hard time placing him because when I watch him in movies, I see him as the character.
Yeah.
Like,
he's good at like getting into the character. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's a Tom Cruise movie, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I fly jets. Guess what? We're going to have a movie where I fly jets. I skydive. We're going to have lots of skydiving. I ride motorcycles. We're going to have lots of motorcycles. It's like Ben Stiller. I'm going to run. Nick, but it works for some people like Nick Cage. You watch Nick Cage in a movie. It's Nick Cage, but he's kicking ass. Samuel Jackson. Perfect. Oh, speaking of which, we lost Louis Gossett Jr.
I saw that. It made me feel kind of sad because obviously we did Enemy Mine, which he's amazing in. He's amazing in, of course, An Officer and a Gentleman. Mayonnaise. He's really good in that.
Officer and a Gentleman. That guy was a freaking powerhouse in An Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah, that's an underrated movie that I don't think too many people talk about anymore as An Officer and a Gentleman. It's a pretty good movie. I like that one.
I'm not really fond of the movie, but I think that performances were outstanding. It's like Denzel Washington. Who else? Like Denzel Washington. When I watch Denzel Washington in movies, I don't see him as Denzel Washington. I see him as the character. Mm-hmm. Who else? There's a couple other. Brendan Gleeson.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking about that because we watched him in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
And I watched a little bit of In Bruges. And then partway through, I'm like, that's Mad Eye Moody. Damn it. That can't be.
He's good at.
He's really good.
Different, yeah. Getting lost in the character, you know.
So those are male actors, but like, what female actors like hit that button for you? Like, you don't think of them as the actress. You think of them as the character. One comes to mind really quickly for me.
Okay.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't think of Meryl Streep as a person. I can only picture, I mean, I've seen her like on award shows, but I can only picture her as the characters because she's so freaking good when she does
she's one of those actresses where you don't really know, wouldn't be able to say, this is how Meryl Streep really is. Cause you don't really know that there's not really that many like interviews with her, or, you know, she's not very she does not really do a lot of press. So whenever she plays a character, you just think of her as that character. And I think Glenn Close does that for me quite a bit in some of her movies. She kind of gets submerged into the character.
I think it's really tough though, because I'm going to go on a soapbox. I think we look more for younger actresses because you'll get guys that look like they're just on the ragged ass end of 60. And then the female lead across from them will look like she's barely out of high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always been a kind of a pain when, like, you know, she plays, you know, his wife or his protege or whatever, or their romantic interest, and there's a 40-year age difference, and it's like, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And then there's
speaking of this movie, David Carradine and Uma Thurman.
Yeah, David Carradine. What's the sound of one hand choking?
I knew we were going to bring that up.
Well, of course we're going to bring that up. But there's one more British actress whose name eludes me because I don't see her as the character. Okay, so in Hot Fuzz, she was the lone female officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's been in so many damn movies. Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
This is going to riveting podcasting right here. So where are we? Olivia Colman.
Okay. Yeah. I can see.
She's damn good. And then Pam Grier.
Yeah, she's always good.
Pam Grier.
Solid actress. Before you ask me,
Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez?
No, I'm fucking around. I think she's horrible. she's absolute clown shoes.
I can only think of Cartman's taco, burrito.
Taco kisses.
Taco flavor kisses.
So let's hear it.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, your actresses or what you watched?
Watched? I watched nothing really as far as movie goes, except for Kill Bill, because like David and the NCAA tournament has been raging, and I've been watching a ridiculous amount of basketball, both men and women's basketball. And finally, it's starting to slow down this week. There's no games until Friday and Saturday, so I'm actually going to try to watch some movies and stuff.
Okay, so why was David not able to record on our normal night? Was it because he was sad that some team lost? Because you guys lose me when you start talking about college sports.
Well, Dave has been a lifelong Duke basketball fan, the Duke Blue Devils.
Okay,
and him and his dad, their kind of year is makes or breaks whether or not Duke does really well. Well, Duke made it into the Elite Eight, but then they got beat by their rival NC State again for the third time this year, and so they got knocked out of the tournament. And David didn't want to record on Sunday because he would be too irritated to talk and be cordial. So,
but who cares if he's cordial? That would have made for a much better time.
David just crying.
Yeah, just he's rocking in the corner, and we're just kind of trying to prod him to say something about the movie.
I did want to say something that I am officially boycotting Godzilla vs. Kong, The Lost Empire, until it comes out on video. I will not pay to see it because, and this is not a spoiler, it's just a fact, that I read that Godzilla is in the movie for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. And they continuously make King Kong the protagonist of these movies, and I could give a shit about King Kong.
Of all the flavors you could have chosen, you picked salty.
Yes, salty as hell about Godzilla is the first build in this movie, and he's in the movie for 8 minutes, so I'm not going to go see it in the theater.
Can I tell you a really interesting thing? I don't give a shit about that movie.
Yeah.
When it comes to video, I don't even know if I'll watch it.
The movie, out of the whole, American Godzilla monsterverse, I think that Godzilla King of the Monsters was the best one, even though that didn't make as much money as the other ones. I thought that one was the best, but they have fucking ridiculous human stories, and the Hollow Earth and all this other kind of stuff is so ridiculous. And
your little gizmo that calls the creatures. And
the gizmo that can tame the little girl who can speak sign language with King Kong and all kind of stuff. I would rather see Godzilla slide across his tail on his tail while Jet Jaguar holds Gigan and gets kicked. To me, that is more compelling than
that was oddly specific.
Yeah.
It's like you're giving it thought.
Godzilla nerd. Some people are like, "Oh, Godzilla shouldn't run that fast," or "Godzilla shouldn't do that." I'm like, have you seen the 1950s through 70s Godzilla movies where he's, floating in the air by his atomic breath and curling his little his tail in like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, or doing a little victory dance on the moon when he's fighting King Ghidorah, or tail sliding and doing all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's. If you're willing to accept that, he can be more. He can run.
He just walks slow because he's got big Godzilla energy. That's why.
Yeah, he doesn't have to run. He's like Paulie in Goodfellas. He didn't have to run for nobody.
This is effect.
So I'm excited. I'm not excited to see it. I will eventually watch it just because it is Godzilla, but I'm not going to pay money to see Godzilla take a back seat to King Kong.
I'm ready for Godzilla -1 to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
To watch it again.
Me too.
I want to watch it again.
Yeah, and if you want to see a good Godzilla movie, watch Godzilla -1. And Godzilla isn't in that movie that much, but he's used effectively, and you give a shit about the human characters, and it's done well. So that's my stance.
I love how they focus just on the devastation, rather than that far. Like they're showing like what it's like to be on the ground when he comes stomping through. And and then Shin Godzilla. That's the other one. I still haven't seen it yet.
That's amazing. I love it. That's a really, really good one.
His mouth splits open like the vampires in Blade.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He's got bodies growing out of his tail like little mutants and stuff. At the end that didn't really. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it's so good.
Yeah. It's not like I'm not going to eventually see it. I just got to find the time. I'm taking time off. Joe's got spring break coming, so
nice.
Yeah, that'll be a good time.
Cool. Well, let's talk about where homages and ripoffs meet together in Kill Bill Volume 1. It's not a ripoff if nobody else has seen it, though. Really.
Exactly.
If the movie is so obscure that maybe only a few some movie nerds have seen it, then it's the other people think it's completely original because they've never seen it, even though you have seen it and they are ripping it off.
I learned something when I watched this movie. My wife fucking hates this movie.
Oh, really?
She ruined it for me. Like, I really wanted to watch it. I really wanted to enjoy it. Just the sheer ridiculousness of some of it, like the over the top violence. And man, she was just going off. She was so angry. She was upset. So she wanted to make my viewing of it shitty.
Mm-hmm.
That's how irritated she was. I'm sure that never happens at your house.
Well, Jamie just didn't want to watch it. I said, hey, I want to watch Kill Bill. She's like, I'm going to go do a puzzle. Or I'm going to go read. Or I'm going to go outside and, work in the yard or something like that.
My wife decided to sit right down and fuck up the viewing of it. Mm-hmm. She was so livid. It almost became as entertaining as the movie itself.
What upset her the most?
The fact that it was a movie. Oh my God. She was in a coma. Her legs don't work, but her arms do for 4 years. If she was in a coma, where's her feeding tube? Why don't they have pressure cuffs on her? And then they start, with the fighting and all the stuff and just everything. It's like, oh, it's so gross. Him and his foot fetish, showing his feet. And I'm like, God, please stop. Just let me watch. I mean, I understand that there's parts of the movie I don't particularly care for either, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
God, the fighting the crazy 88s, that was laughable fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hyper realistic.
Yeah.
You don't expect realism at all from it. Even and even like with the coma thing and stuff, you're like that. I was like, man, she would be so skinny and weak and so depleted.
Even Steven Seagal couldn't pop out of a coma like that.
Exactly. But to me, it's like it is exploitation cinema. So it's like even just from the go. It is all about, when it shows that Shaw Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Opening, and you're like, okay, this is the level of what we're going to see. And then it has that feature presentation 70s, that they do in Grindhouse. And if you watch old Grindhouse movie trailers, they have that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like, okay, if you know that this is going to be a certain level of movie, so don't expect realism or
if you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of my, I hate that saying that if you know, but if you do, in this case, it's true. If you know exploitation cinema and you've watched a shitload of kung fu movies and samurai movies and spaghetti westerns and Italian giallo films and all the shit that I love, it puts you in the mindset of that. And you, of course, we're the same age and we've watched a lot of kung fu movies. We watched kung fu movies together.
Yep.
We've watched spaghetti westerns. We've watched slasher movies. We've watched all that stuff. So it is made for our age of movie viewing of him. And Tarantino's a little bit older than us, and he's definitely more. He is like a film encyclopedia. I sent you a link to like Vanity Fair did like 11-minute compilation of all the homages in Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yeah, I was under the sink when you sent it, so I haven't looked at it yet.
But if you have not watched it, I'd recommend going to YouTube and looking at, it's just like all the homages in Kill Bill Volume 1. And it is so many homages, you wonder, it's like, where's the originality in it? But one of the people likened it to like a collage. It's like a movie collage where he just takes all the stuff that he remembers from all the other movies and all the shots and the music and all that kind of stuff and just put it together in the movie that he wanted to see.
So so when I was thinking about this and all the different things I was picking up, not as many as probably that article, but this reminds me of breakfast. If I'm making an omelet, I don't make an omelet that makes sense for anybody else. I just grab all the shit that I like, and then that's what's going to be inside the omelet. And then I'm going to pour green chili sauce over the top of it. And then I'm happy because I get everything that's inside of it. And I bet you, if you had one of my omelets, you'd sit there and look at me and go, that's pretty damn good omelet, Neil. Okay. Because of a similar culinary view from where we grew up. And exactly with this movie, because it's just all carbohydrates. And again, I get ridiculously happy when I see the Shaw Brothers thing pop onto the screen.
Yeah.
And even though
it's
I
like
knew
me with Toho, if I see that Toho logo, I'm like, oh shit.
Well, depending what Godzilla movie it is, it makes me excited too. But man, the Shaw Brothers and that, as soon as it comes across, you just kind of get like, oh, we're in for a ride. Here's going to be some great moments in cinema right here.
Well, I, as a kid, this is going to be a lot of digressions talking about Kung Fu movies and stuff like that. I loved Kung Fu Theater on the USA Network, and late night on like KTLA or whatever, they would show some Kung Fu movies. And one I remember very distinctly was Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger. And it's about a guy, it was like a Bruce Lee knockoff movie, a Bruce-sploitation movie where this guy is like the next Bruce Lee, and he fights this guy with a white cane, and they had this long battle on the beach. And I just remember it being so epic, and it just sticking in my mind over the 50 years of my life. And then I watched it on YouTube, and I was like, this is not that good. But in my brain, it was amazing.
Well, I mean, Master of the Flying Guillotine.
Oh, yeah.
Snake and Eagle's Shadow, Jackie Chan,
Drunken Master 1,
Drunken Master, all really good. The Magnificent Butcher,
yes,
just like right off the top of the head. And the 36 Chambers of the Shaolin.
Yes, we'll be talking about that when we talk about Gordon Liu.
Shout out, protect your neck, Wu-Tang.
Yeah, the 36 Chambers of Shaolin, the one-armed boxer. Master of Cracked Fingers, Dirty Ho, which I always think is the funniest name for a Kung Fu movie. Just Dirty Ho.
And like I always think of it's the band Five Finger Death Punch, but it's like five fingers of death or something like that.
Yeah, there's dang it, I just thought once you mentioned that, it pushed the other one out of my brain. Yeah, but there's something very similar to that title. I remember Snake and Eagle Shadow, Five Deadly Venoms,
Hitman in the Hand of Buddha, the Seven Grandmasters, Shaolin Martial Arts,
and going to Lone Wolf and Cub, and the Japanese one, Shogun Assassin.
Don't get me started on Ogami Ito.
Street Fighter with Sonny Chiba.
If you got to fight dirty.
Yeah, Street Fighter, Sister Street Fighter, Street Fighter's Last Revenge. All those movies were awesome, and that was the first movies I remember where you would see like Sonny Chiba would punch somebody, and then they would show like a X-ray, like an animated X-ray of his head cracking and all that kind of stuff. And then all the anime we watched, it wasn't anime back then; it was Japanimation.
Japanime.
Yeah.
Remember Sonny Chiba in Immortal Kombat when he looks at Roddy Piper and he goes, "Are you a pussy?" And he fights the guy with his katana turned backwards, and that was so much fun. Okay, anyway, Kill Bill.
Yes. But yeah, just this movie is just a mashup of all the stuff that we grew up on. You want to hit us with the Internet Movie Database tagline there?
After awakening from a 4-year coma, a former assassin wreaks vengeance on the team of assassins who betrayed her. What is the name? What would you, if you had to name a group of assassins, what would you name them?
The Deadly Viper Assassination Squad?
It's that. As soon as you hear that, you're like, he's not taking this 100% serious. He's just having fun with the shit that he enjoyed.
Yeah, it was like, I guess that's
and feet.
Don't forget feet. But it was an homage to the Serpent Society in Marvel Comics because there was a Cottonmouth and Black Mamba and all the other different snakes in there. So that was a
Cottonmouth though. Luke Cage took Cottonmouth down.
Yeah.
So
remember Heroes for Hire, Power Man and Iron Fist. Yeah. Nick Cage changed his name from Nicholas Coppola because he liked Power Man's name. So yeah, we're getting nerdy up in here, but
yeah, I'll just set the nerd up. You knock the nerd down.
Yeah. So written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, released October 10th, 2003. Budget of $30 million, made $180 million at the box office. So pretty good return on investment. And people forget because this was kind of a gamble because up to that point, it was just Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and then Jackie Brown. And Jackie Brown wasn't a huge hit. It's a good movie, but people are like, what's next? And he decides to make this huge mashup movie. So it was kind of a risk at that point. Cast, of course, Uma Thurman as the bride, Lucy Liu as Orenishi, half American, half Chinesey. You hear that rap on the soundtrack by the David Carradine as Bill, and he's in Volume 2 way more than he is in Volume 1. In Volume 2 is a lot slower paced, and it's more spaghetti western giallo Italian kind of vibe compared to straight kung fu. And I like Volume 1 better because it's more action oriented, but 2 is good as well. But Carradine doesn't really get to shine in until part 2, where you get to see him make a sandwich and talk about Superman, but he's really good in this. Unfortunately, he passed not too long after that in a Bangkok hotel room.
Bangkok hotel room. Mm-hmm. All right, cool.
Vivica A. Fox, not just Vivica Fox.
Not Vivica the Fox. Vivica A. Fox.
Yes, this is Vernita Green. Michael Madsen is Bud, who's really not in this movie too much. Daryl Hannah is Elle Driver, who's really good. And of course, Sonny Chiba is Hattori Hanzo.
You know what made me feel good about this is that I have not been involved in any martial arts now for over coming up on 7 years since I've had to have the neck surgery and all the other stuff. I understood every damn word of Japanese in this movie.
Oh, that's nice. Pretty cool.
I felt really good about that. I kept looking at my wife and she was raging about it. And I was like, I totally understood what they said. I don't care.
Gordon Liu as Johnny Moe. And let's look at the David Carradine filmography. It is insane. He has been in so much stuff, starting in 1964, but he is in tons of B movies. Death Race 2000, Thunder and Lightning, The Serpent's Egg, Death Sport. Do you remember Circle of Iron? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be like based on the writings of Bruce Lee or whatever. And I just remember a guy in a big metal pot. Do you remember? Do you remember that? It's such a weird movie.
There's something about David Carradine. If he's not getting the shit kicked out of him by Chuck Norris, I just don't. He's got that like kind of Quaalude effect as he speaks. And then the fact that he started to take himself way too serious. Remember when he was hawking like his Tai Chi?
Tai Chi, yes. I remember.
He was doing that on late night TV. I will be your master. And then in the back, bait her as long as I am choking.
He was in Q, The Winged Serpent, which is a nice Larry Cohen movie. Very funny, crazy. Lone Wolf McQuade, which we've done one of our favorite episodes on. That is still my favorite Chuck Norris movie, Lone Wolf McQuade.
So never forget a face. Never forget an asshole.
The Warrior and the Sorceress. I mean, he's just been in a shitload of movies of varying quality, mostly bad quality. Future Zone, Martial Law, Karate Cop.
I don't get how he martial arts. He moves so slow. He doesn't engage his core. Please make it stop, Eric. Don't read more.
Children of the Corn 5.
Yes, I know. And it ruined that for me as well. I love Children of the Corn movies. They're for varying reasons.
He was making movies all the way up to 2017.
Till he had his waxident.
Yeah. I remember my dad and my grandpa loved Kung Fu. The TV show Kung Fu. And I remember them watching it on reruns because it was over in 1975. So I was obviously too young to remember the first run, but I remember the reruns over and over and over again.
They even started it over, and then there was like a young guy that started like learning Kung Fu from him.
Yeah, the legend continues.
Yeah, he's running around in the 80s. You got guys coming at him full bore, and he's moving like he's underwater. Like, And if we have seen anything, if the internet has proven anything to us, is that when you see these guys go up against people that do things like Muay Thai, kickboxing, and jiu-jitsu, and they take their traditional Kung Fu, they get their asses kicked.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Yeah, you're not practicing anything with any kind of practicality. None.
Well, let's talk about Sonny Chiba, though. He's got an awesome...
Fuck yeah, Sonny Chiba.
I didn't realize he had died in 2021. I think maybe we even said it during the podcast or something that we had said farewell, Sonny Chiba. But some of the movies the titles of the movies are crazy. Judo for Life, Special Tactical Police 2, Song of the Yakuza, Life of Blackmail, Decree from Hell, Tokyo Untouchable, Prostitution Underground Organization. That Cute Girl. Let's get to the 70s where things get a little more.
Okay. So if we want to go, the clearest memory I have of him as a kid was we were watching the drive-in, and it was Shogun Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I became aware of the name Sonny Chiba. Loved that one. Love that one. And then Shogun's Ninja, which he did later on.
Yes, I remember that.
Super, super good. And then he did like 8 Samurai. That one was one of my favorites. And of course, all the Street Fighter movies. But then he did a whole
Bushido Blade. Don't forget that one.
Oh yeah.
Ninja Wars, Legend of the 8 Samurai. Dang, yeah, he was in a lot of movies. But he's definitely memorable. I keep thinking of him in the Street Fighter series because he was such a dick, literally ripping people's wangs off and
ripping the wangs off. He was in a series of movies. Don no Michi. It's like an idiom. It means don't forget where you're from. Don't forget where you come from. And there's like 8 or 9 of those.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really good too.
And let's talk about Gordon Liu. He was, of course, he plays Pai Mei in the second one, but he's Johnny Mo in this one. So
I shouldn't have cut my beard.
Makes me want to grow a beard just so you can have a flip to be able to flip.
I know.
Around.
I cut mine all short because the weather's going to be getting hotter. I should have grown it out and flip it over. That'd be so badass. 5
Shaolin Masters, 7-man army. He has nothing but kung fu. Executioners from Shaolin, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin.
Hell yes,
is amazing. The greatest training kung fu movie of all time. Dirty Ho, Clan of the White Lotus, Return of the 36th Chamber, Shaolin and Wu Tang, The Shaolin Drunken Monk, Legendary Weapons of China. I remember that one. That's a really good one.
Drunken Master 3,
8 Diagram Pole Fighter. Yeah. Oh, man, just so many amazing kung fu flicks. Drunken Monkey. Yeah, these are some of the. Obviously, Tarantino knows his stuff, so he gets the people who are. Of course, Wu Ping was the fight choreographer from so many Chinese movies, and of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and all that other kind of stuff. The best wire work.
Oh, that was the other thing too. Whenever he was coming out as the head of the Crazy 88s, that was the other thing that got my wife. Like, that guy didn't even look Japanese. That guy's not Japanese. He doesn't even look Japanese. I was like, well, babe, most Caucasian people aren't going to notice that. It was just you happen to have spent a lot of time in these places with me. She goes, no, that's not it. This is horrible. I can't believe he's just going to treat these cultures this way. Did I mention my wife fucking hated this movie?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Do you want to listen? Talk about read about the influences?
Let's do it. I'm going to guess there's going to be something about Grindhouse in here. Kill Bill was inspired by Grindhouse films.
First sentence.
I haven't even been drinking. That played in cheap U.S. theaters in the 1970s, including martial arts films, samurai cinema, blaxploitation films, and spaghetti westerns. It plays homage to the Shaw Brothers studio, known for its martial arts films, with the inclusion of the Shawscope logo in the opening titles and the crashing zoom, a fast zoom, usually ending in a close-up commonly used in Shaw Brothers films. The bride's yellow tracksuit, helmet, and motorcycle resembled those used by Bruce Lee in the 1972 martial arts film Game of Death. The animated sequence plays homage to violent anime films such as Golgo 13, The Professional, and Wicked City. It also reminded me greatly of Aeon Flux.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, I can see the similarity.
Yeah. Whimper. The Guardian wrote that Kill Bill's plot shares similarities with the 1973 Japanese film Lady Snowblood, in which a woman kills off the gang who murdered her family. Also, not a bad movie at all. Murdered her family and observed that like how Lady Snowblood used stills and illustration for parts of the narrative that were too expensive to film, Kill Bill similarly uses Japanese-style animation to break up the narrative. The plot also resembles the 1968 French film The Bride Wore Black, in which a bride seeks revenge on 5 gang members and strikes them off a list as she kills them.
Right.
Shall we move on to the critical consensus?
Yes, please.
Do you have things to say, good sir?
No, go for it. Keep going.
Rotten Tomatoes gave Kill Bill a score of 85% based on review from 238 critics. The average rating is 7.7 out of 10. I would have gone high B, low A. 85% I don't think is a fair grade for this. Its consensus reads, Kill Bill is admittedly little more than a stylish revenge thriller, albeit one that benefits from a wildly inventive surfeit of style. I don't even know that word. I've never seen that word or heard of that word before in my whole life. At Metacritic, which assigns a weighted average score of 69 out of 100, that's so strange. That's my lucky number. On 43 reviews from mainstream critics indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B+ on an A+ to F scale. Well, at least the audiences had it a little bit better. A.O. Scott of the New York Times. A.O. Scott. See what it did?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. While being so relentlessly exposed to a filmmaker's idiosyncratic turn-ons can be tedious and off-putting, the undeniable passion.
Is he referring to feet?
The undeniable passion that drives Kill Bill, or the appendage that presses on the gas pedal, strange to say it, is endearing. Mr. Tarantino is an irrepressible show-off, recklessly flaunting his formal skill as a choreographer of high-concept violence, but he is also an unabashed cinephile, and the sincerity of his enthusiasm gives this messy, uneven spectacle an odd, feverish integrity. Manohla Dargis of the Los Angeles Times called Kill Bill Volume 1 a blood-soaked Valentine to movies. It's apparent that Tarantino is striving for more than off-the-rack mash note or a pastiche of golden oldies. It is rather his homage to movies shot in celluloid and wide screen. An ode to the time right before movies were radically secularized. She also recognized Tarantino's technical talent, but thought the film's appeal was too limited to popular culture references, calling its story the least interesting part of the whole equation. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave it 4 out of 4, describing Tarantino as effortlessly and brilliantly in command of his technique. He wrote, "The movie is not about anything at all except the skill and humor of its making. It's kind of brilliant." So we got all that down. Forgetting about all the other stuff in the movies and all the other boxes that it ticks, it is really a good-looking movie.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's a really good-looking movie. And he can find people that can do damn close-ups super well. Like staring at Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Uma Thurman just sitting there heaving and bloody on the floor. And in that black and white, which makes that contrast between her blood and her skin like even more, which I think makes it gives it kind of like a greater, it makes it look more violent. Because you're like, oh, you see the red, but when you see it as that dark, as that almost dark black,
yeah, it sticks out way more.
More, and that was bad. That was badass, and he knows how to put a film together. His shots, all the things he does, and it was just a hectic, raging, fucking thrill ride. I loved it. I loved it. My wife, not so much.
I was watching a lot of videos about it before we started recording, and there's this YouTube channel that I like. It's called The Take, but it's a lot of women discussing films, and so they kind of have a feminist slant on the movies, which I like to hear about and like to hear their opinions and stuff, where they thought this movie was regressive in some ways, but also iconic in others. And they talked about how Uma Thurman said a lot of women come up to her and say that they really love this movie and it got them through some tough times and it made them get the strength to get through some issues and other things. But at the same time, it still has the tropes of 70s movies where rape and revenge stories were always very just prevalent. And that's kind of a movie I don't like. I don't like sexual violence in movies. It's a turnoff for me, or it makes me feel bad, and I just don't like that. Even in a movie when they're acting it out, I just don't like it. And this one is not as bad; it's implied rather than shown. But I can't watch a movie like I Spit on Your Grave, or even The Hills Have Eyes, or Miss 45, or even Death Wish, and all that kind of stuff, where what spurs on the revenge is a rape or something like that, where this one has it a little bit, but they kind of kill the rapist really fast in this movie. So it's like something that she overcomes, but it's still that part of the show. Just like watching Game of Thrones or something like that. There's so much sexual violence in Game of Thrones, and sometimes it is off-putting. Not off-putting, like snack pack pudding, but off-putting. Anyway, I don't know.
I think you're reading too much into my expression, honestly.
Yeah, so it's complicated in some of the movies. Do you want to have your cake and eat it too? Do you want the stuff to happen to get it's like watching John Wick, whatever. Him killing a dog is like the biggest transgression, or the bad guys killing a dog is such a huge transgression because people usually don't see animals get killed in a movie, but women are far too often raped and murdered in movies, I guess.
So, I mean, how do you feel? That's something that happens. And as guys, we're usually the ones that are doing it. So would you accept it more as something to drive a narrative about, what a survivor of that does or what that does to the person, rather than having it just be a plot point for action?
Well, I think
I can see the relevance of it. I mean, because it's something that I think, it's
a reality. 100%. It's reality. Yeah.
And we've still got all these guys like, I'm the alpha male and chicks need to do this and that for me and whatever. And if you say you're alpha, you're not alpha, you're fucking omega. But, I think, I just wonder, because there seems to be, like, for us, we don't need to worry about that. I can fall asleep at a party and I'm going to wake up just with a dick drawn on my face, not with anything else happening to me.
Well, I don't know. One day I decided I was at homesick or something like that. So I decided to watch the remake of I Spit on Your Grave. It came out like,
Don't.
I don't know. I was just interested because the first one is so awful. It's done in that 70s style. So it's really awful to watch. So I'm like, well, how are they going to handle it in a modern movie? And it wasn't as bad, still bad, but the revenge she got on the guys was so over the top that it was like, okay, I felt a little more like, all right, you get him, whatever. It just, but I knew
Yeah.
there was you're being manipulated because she has to go through that
She has to go through
to
that.
get to that
Yeah.
point, you know.
Because I wonder. I mean, if it's even possible. Because one of the things I like about I like reading authors from different backgrounds, different cultures, and of course, male, female, whatever you want to identify. I love looking at things from other people's perspectives and points of view, just because I think where we grew up, ours was a little narrow, right? It's one of the things. It's one of the things that drove me out to where I live now, is just because I wanted to experience so much more culture and be around different people. But I wonder if there is even an effective way to explore that in a movie, because it's so it's so far removed from what we will ever have to deal with, and I always tell people, I am so thankful because I see the way that young girls are treated and objectified. And it makes me so glad I have a boy, because all I got to do is teach him not to be a dick, not to be an ass. And I wonder if there maybe is, are we just so desensitized to that? Is that just the way it's used? Do you think this could be a way that we could actually push this as a narrative to kind of create a discussion without it being, because social media, someone's going to get on and say some tasteless shit. We just know that. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this, but I'm wondering if there's a way, because I mean, not understanding and empathizing, and going after and attacking victims. And I wonder how many things like that don't get reported just because these people, women, are just so goddamn traumatized because they know they're going to be drugged through and treated like shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right, let's get back to the exploitation cinema.
Okay.
And I think that it really, and I think that, you know, people are looking and analyzing the movie where I don't even think Tarantino was even doing it. I think he was just playing with the tropes and the expectations and the styles and the storylines of those types of movies. You know, in like the movie, of course, starts with her getting shot, and that's very. We were talking about it, the contrast in the black and white imagery of her panting, and then then her getting shot, and then all of a sudden it goes black, and you hear Nancy Sinatra, "My Baby Shot Me Down," which is a good song. He's really good at picking music. That's one thing that he has a talent for, is picking the perfect song for whatever scene that he's portraying.
Yeah. And he can do somebody getting shot in the head really well.
Yeah. And of course the Ironside theme, which I guess it was in the Five Deadly Venoms. Not one of it's also in Ironside, but it's also in a kung fu movie where when the guy sees the person he wants to kill, that kind of siren goes off. And the first fight is amazing. That close quarters fight between her and Vernita Green, and just that knife fight was pretty awesome.
They cut it really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think Tarantino does a good job of setting up the spaces, just like in the house, the Bell's house, Jeannie Bell's house and her husband's house. He does that overhead shot, like a bisected part of the house where you can see they're going through into the kitchen. And of course, there's the Kaboom cereal, which is foreshadowing to the gun that's inside the cereal box.
God, that was so good.
I do like Michael Parks a lot whenever he plays Earl McGraw, and he's the Texas Ranger.
Yeah,
and he was awesome in From Dusk Till Dawn. Ain't good for a hippie.
High on weed.
High on weed.
That's exactly what I said as soon as he came on. As soon as he came on, I'm like, man, that's such a good line delivery.
Egg-colored hair. The way he says that. That's such a weird line choice.
He does write some awkward dialogue. Like when he tries to get all serious and he takes contractions right out of the picture. No more contractions. Throw away the contractions, damn it.
Lots of boots on wooden floors in this movie, which always sound good.
Got to reverb those things out, man. Spaghetti Westerns.
What song is that? Oh, it's Spaghetti Westerns.
Spaghetti Western by Primus.
Primus, yeah.
I love a Spaghetti Western. The boots are all reverbed out on a hardwood floor. Yeah. Les Claypool knows.
I do love the use of Twisted Nerve, that whistling, that and that's from a murder mystery or murder, called Twisted Nerve that came out in the 60s. And Bernard Herrmann, of course, did the Psycho score. He had a falling out with Alfred Hitchcock and did this movie, and that's super memorable. And then I'll have you note that they use another piece of music from when the skeevy hospital worker, Buck, decides to, when he realizes that he's going to die, they use a song from Seven Notes in Black by Lucio Fulci, movie that he directed.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one. And it was hay colored hair, right? Isn't that what he said? Hay colored hair.
Oh, I thought you said egg hair. Maybe it is hay colored.
Hay colored hair. And
Probably hay colored hair.
Have some blood.
Yeah. Spits in his mouth. Yeah, that part was the one that is the hardest to kind of like contextualize, when the guy's going in there and he's paying $75 to spend time with somebody who's comatose. And then she gets rid of them both. But yeah, that was kind of like,
okay.
Yeah, so gross.
It was so gross, but that damn jar of Vaseline took it over the top. That jar of Vaseline.
Yeah, that took it way in a different.
I got herpes just looking at that jar of Vaseline.
Yes, that touch was just like. Then you get your flashback of the Deadly Viper assassination squad and the origin of Oren Ishii, which is entirely animated. Would love the fountains of blood. And I like the way they made Bill look, young Bill, in that kind of the way he was animated. It was cool with the rings and the samurai sword and stuff like that. It was kind of done well. The whole sequence is really cool. And when she's an assassin and that shot of where the bullet goes through the guy's head, and then you can see the people through the bullet hole in his head. The two girls that are in the back of the limousine with him, they start screaming.
The scream was so good. I do, when the blood starts to spray, I did have to movie nerd my wife just a little bit to say that this started in the movie Sanjuro.
Yes.
And it just people loved it, and so you just go for it. Amazing.
Yeah, Kurosawa, right? Akira Kurosawa.
I believe Sanjuro was Kurosawa.
Yeah. That was in that duel and that fountain of blood, and that's just been a staple in those types of movies. Where, of course, we go to The Man from Okinawa, Chapter 4, Sonny Chiba. That whole part is really cool.
Oh, you speak very good Japanese. It's very easy. Every Japanese person I had ever met always freaked out that I spoke Japanese, but they always did the same thing. Oh, you should learn Japanese. It's very easy.
Does not seem very.
I would beg to differ. It's almost like it's a totally foreign language from what I grew up with.
Really?
Yeah, almost.
New Mexican? Of course, we get to the best set piece in the whole movie, the showdown at the House of Blue Leaves. That the whole part where they're walking for the battle without honor humanity. That theme is really cool, and just kind of walking into the restaurant. And they use the set from Godzilla, one of the movies that we did.
I loved the mini, and that was the other thing too. I appreciated the hell out of those miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't crazy about the plane, but I loved the as they were flying in, the miniatures for that. That was fun as hell.
Yeah, those old sets from GMK, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which we did a for Monster March. It opened Monster March for us, so you'll listen to that. Green Hornet theme, Red Apple cigarettes. That's part of the Tarantino verse, along with Big Kahuna Burger.
That's the Hawaiian burger joint, right?
It is that Hawaiian burger joint. K. Billy's super sound of the 70s.
Unless you can do it like Stephen Wright, I don't.
Big Daddy Don Bodine's truck. The Behemoth. And Tarantino did another good job of setting up the scene with that super long tracking shot through the restaurant when the 5, 6, 7, 8s are playing, and they're following the bride through it, through the restaurant into the bathroom, and she sees Sophie in there and her cell phone ringtone. Remember ringtones? Remember when we had ringtones? Mm-hmm. You'd pay money for a ringtone?
I do, actually. Yours, when you text or call, it's the themed Halloween.
It's not the Super Mario Brothers. That's the only ringtone I've really hung.
Like I've got a friend who's an old retired Marine, and when his goes off, it's the sound of machine guns. And I'm very contextual. A friend of mine that's a drummer in the band we play in, his is drums.
Yeah. That's cool.
My wife's is Darth Vader going, "What is thy bidding, my master?"
That's funny. I love when she cut Sophie's arm off, and that just fountain of blood when she's screaming.
Everybody give a hand to Sophie. Big hand for Sophie.
I don't know if you've seen Dario Argento's movie Tenebrae.
Why do you even ask this question?
There's this part in Tenebrae where this girl is like reading, trying to discover who the killer is, and this axe just comes out of nowhere, and she's wearing a white blouse, and the wall behind her is painted white, and she just shoots a fountain of blood across the white wall. It's done in a really cool way, and I don't know if Tarantino homaged that or not, but it was very similar.
The actress who played Sophie, man, sold getting her arm chopped off. I've never seen anybody get an arm chopped off. I've seen fingers, never seen an arm, but I 100% believe that shit
about her
hurt.
agony.
I believe that hurt.
That's interesting. I was reading about her. She wasn't in a lot of movies, but she was a model, and she speaks fluent Japanese.
And
she
French.
lived in Japan, and French too. So yeah, pretty interesting. Just tons of cool gags during that whole fight with the underling, the other henchmen, especially Go-Go, where she's using that ball on a chain. That was really, really cool.
And I dug that you and I were of the same mind with this. The eye plucking out, you put that in the notes with the like eagle claw thing or whatever she did. Pulled the eye out.
Yeah.
But how about the break dancing, cutting off legs? She's doing an old school break dancing move and just taking legs off.
Taking legs out left and right. Yeah.
At some point, one of the guys like, "Oh shit, she's chopping off legs. Let me take a half step back." Nope, they charge in.
But the movie, that scene is like almost 15 minutes long, but he does a good job of breaking it up. And I think one of the reasons he turned it to black and white because the MPAA was going to give him an NC-17, so he did that part in black and white where it was more stylized with all the blood shooting out and everything like that. But and then she blinks and turns back into color, and then they cut the lights, and it's kind of a stylized blue background.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he did a lot of good just changing of the variety in that scene, and that finale is pretty dang awesome. In the rooftop garden with all the snow, and I mean that was like a direct ripoff of Lady Snowblood, but it still looks cool as hell.
Hands down, one of my favorite bits though is Lucy Liu. Not just because it's Lucy Liu, damn, but her speech to the other Yakuza.
Oh yes, yeah.
As your leader, I encourage you to, from time to time and always in a respectful manner, to question my logic.
Yeah, I did love that blood fountain probably the best when she decapitates that guy. And it's just like shooting up blood, but then you hear it kind of like taper off, like the squirt's like, and then one final little rush of blood, and then it stops. That's just funny as hell. And that fake head, it was really cool. It felt like heavy when she dropped it on the table.
It was a very
weight.
Strong thud. And then she tells him in Japanese, roughly like, "Gentlemen, this is adjourned. The meeting's adjourned." Mm-hmm. That was pretty. I love it.
So K&B Effects, which we've talked about quite a bit in this on our podcast, did the effects for Kill Bill. Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger effects group, who've done so many movies that we love. They are responsible for the carnage in this movie.
Big ups. Yes,
good stuff. I like when she got the top of her head chopped off the way it looked. That was pretty cool. There's like some cool behind the scenes photos of her like eating or drinking or something like that, and then she doesn't have the top of her head on.
Only Hannibal Lecter did it better.
Yeah. The movie ends in it doesn't seem. I mean, it's an hour and 50 minutes long. I don't really feel like it drug too much. and it goes. You feel like it goes by pretty well, and the action is just pretty amazing. And Tarantino really was stretching his legs as far as like his craft, showing everything that he could do, and I thought he did a good job.
I love nonlinear movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and he does it so well.
Yeah, he is really good at that, at moving things around, especially Pulp Fiction, and of course this one, Reservoir Dogs too. Of course, everything's shown.
Yeah,
and I think it does, especially in Reservoir Dogs. It's almost like a play, but they show you enough so you can kind of piece it together, but not really fill in everything.
Yeah,
for you, it's
just it's a slap. It's like a shocking slap. And you're like, oh my God. And then it starts, and then you start to see all the players and you're like, ooh, how did we get here? What brought this to happen?
I did include a link for the ultimate Kill Bill reference guide. If it will come up here, it's redirecting me. Yes. And this one, of course, we've talked a lot about it. Shaw Brothers Studios. Gordon Liu, the yellow tracksuit, of course, is homage to Bruce Lee's Game of Death, which I remember seeing, and I haven't seen in a long time. And that's the one where he died during the filming, and they pretty much use like what's the term they use in the Sam Raimi movies? The fake shemp, where it's like a guy turn away from this away from the camera, and it looks like Bruce Lee. Of course, Sonny Chiba, the music, there's tons of it. Lady Snowblood. Yeah, there's just so much. I encourage you to watch that video from Vanity Fair about all the homages. Five Fingers of Death is the movie that they used that siren from Ironside, and he also was plucking people's eyes out in Five Fingers of Death as well. Yeah, just lots of cool references. And when they talked about Reservoir Dogs, it was basically a ripoff of a movie called City on Fire, but nobody's ever seen it, so nobody knew that it was almost a direct copy. But if you have seen so many movies and nobody else has seen them, then it seems very original. And I have at that point, back in when Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs came out, I had no clue, because there really wasn't that access like we have now to everything, where you could go and watch it. If you wanted to seek out some of those movies, you would have to hit your obscure video store. There was a one in Albuquerque, Astro Zombies and like City on no, what was it called? Burning Paradise were two of the boutique video stores I would go, and they would have lots of kung fu movies that were bootlegs, and Japanese movies and Godzilla movies and stuff.
There was the video store right there on Central, towards the the end of the field there at the University of New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about? As you're heading towards the mountains, there was that video store that was right there, and sometimes there were guys there that would sell like.
I remember what you're talking about. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah. Uh-huh.
And then there was the Denny's was right over there, and then farther down's the Frontier.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. I remember that because one day I was there looking for movies, and I lived just like 2 blocks off Central. Like if you went out the main, if you went where the Frontier was, if you went towards the school, but if you went away the school and down the block, I lived 2 blocks down from that.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful neighborhood. I suggest
Student
everybody,
ghetto, as they used to call it.
heavy on that. Yeah, I remember that because this guy kept looking at me really weird, and I thought it was very strange, and I walked back down, went past the Frontier, turned, and he followed me all the way to my house and stopped me before I went in and said he would give me money to suck his dick. Yeah. One of my more fond movies of memories of Albuquerque.
There's a stupid TikTok that made me laugh where the guy's like, hey, he's at the drive up window, and he's like, hey, there's a lady out there who is giving BJ's for a McDouble with cheese. I just want to let you know. And then the lady's like, okay, I'll tell the manager. What do you want to order? Well, give me 2 McDoubles with cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was followed by a strange man of Middle Eastern descent. who wanted to talk to me. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I have no idea who you are. I just want to go. And I was really, really tired. I'd worked all night long. I'm like, I have no desire. And then got inside the house and it was like, I couldn't believe it must have been me turning a new leaf because there was no physical altercation after that. Mm-hmm. So I feel that I grew
maturity.
As a person. There's maturity right there. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, what a way to end the show.
I'm going to add that to when I start making my movies. I'm going to throw that in about the young student that worked all night long and just wanted to catch a movie and then go to bed. And then went inside his house and realized his roommate had taken the money and not paid the electrical bill.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Well, that is Kill Bill. It's really a good movie. It's a lot of fun. Your mileage may vary, of course, if you are married to Neil or me.
It is what it is. That's exactly. This movie is nothing more, nothing less.
Yes, exactly.
It just is what it is.
Next week, we're going to do a viewer request or listener request. Our one of our loyal listeners, Armando, is like, "Hey, you guys haven't done Pee-wee's Big Adventure yet," and I'm like, "Oh shit, we haven't done Pee-wee's Big Adventure yet. I can't believe we haven't done that."
Well, when we do, I just want you to remember that Large Marge.
Yes, exactly. I love that movie, and I'm looking forward to doing that one. So next week is Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and then we have a couple of others. I think we're doing Point Break, and then The Dark Knight after that. But then, Neil, just for you, we're doing Back to School May with a bunch of shitty 80s back to school, 80s high school movies. So,
is Rodney Dangerfield anywhere in there?
Oh, we could do that one. Actually, maybe I can move one around and we could do Back to School because that's a fun one.
I love Rodney Dangerfield movies.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm not sure if David will be back with us next week, but if you want to get a hold of us, rvspodcast222@gmail.com. We are on Threads, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. So check it out. If you want to, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com and look for the Retro Video Store, and it'll help contribute to the cause. It makes me sad. I check it like once a week, and nobody ever donates. It makes me sad.
Never get a coffee.
I know, never get a coffee, but
I have to go into the kitchen and do a pour over, like an old snob.
But thanks, everybody.
Have a good week. Go watch some movies.
Thank you for listening to the Retro Video Store Podcast.